All right, thank you guys. We're going style of the teacher from Charlie Brown, where you just heard her talk, but you never saw her face because we are having technical difficulties with our video. But anyways, my name is Cheyenne Gates, and we have Kyler here as well. He will be doing the table topics. We'll have 3 sections for our meeting. We'll have the prepared speech, the table topics, and the evaluations. We can just go through the roles real quick. So can I please get the explanation of the timer?
Hello, my name is Olivia, and I have accepted the role of the timer. So I will be keeping time on all of our speeches, prepared speeches, and table topics. I will also record the time of the evaluators. So the prepared speeches are 5 to 7 minutes. Am I correct about that? Is that right, Diego?
Well, mine is going to be
7.
mine is going to be 3 to 5. This particular speech.
3 to 5. Okay.
Yes,
So,
my speech at maximum is 7 and the minimum is 5 minutes.
okay, so 3 to 5, and I know the what is it? I can't get my words out. The table topic speeches are 1 to 2 minutes. So when you reach your 1 minute mark, 4 minute mark, or either 6 minute mark, you will see a green. And for you guys, I have a green cup that will signify that you are getting close to time to wrap it up. From there, when you get to 30 seconds before you're ending, you will see my yellow bananas, pardon those brown spots on there, but you get the point. And then when you have reached the end of your time, you will get this red plate here that I just got from Walmart at a really good deal, like 3 cents a piece. But anyway, so I couldn't resist them. So green, yellow, and red. And that at the end, I will give my report for each speech. That will be it. Thank you. Back to you, Cheyenne.
All right, thank you. And can we please get a brief description from the counter?
Hi, I'm David. I will be the counter for this evening. I will be checking for filler words and words like you know or that sort of thing. So hopefully I won't have any tonight, but you never know. And in addition to that, I will also be the grammarian, where I'll be checking for proper use of the English language. And I'll also go over the word of the day while I'm here. The word of the day is domicile, and it can be a noun, and the noun form is the country that a person treats as their permanent home or lives in and has a substantial connection with. As a verb, treat a specified country as a permanent home. The tenant is domiciled in the U.S., example of the verb. An example of the noun usage would be, his wife has a domicile of origin in Germany. And I'll put that up on chat as well, the word of the day. And that's my reports. Thank you.
Can you spell that for me, David, please?
Yes, it is D-O, can you see here? May not show. D-O-M-I-C-I-L-E. I'll put it on chat.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. And then could we please get a description of the table topics from Kyler?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kyler Gates. I'll be the table topics master for this evening. The goal of the table topics master is to ask some, pop-up short questions that typically take 1 to 2 minutes to answer. This is to help everyone be comfortable thinking and speaking on their feet, as if you were to run into someone in the elevator or to have a quick meeting with someone and you're unprepared. I'll be asking a couple questions from a list from the table topics card selection that we have. And I picked out some interesting ones. So I think you guys will have fun with these. Thank you. Back to you, Toastmaster.
All right. And I believe that is all of our roles. Oh, general evaluator. Sorry, could we please get a brief description of the general evaluation?
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests. I'm Peter So, and I'll be the general evaluator. I will invite up the different evaluators to share feedback, and also the odd counter and grammarian, and then give some general comments about the meeting and return the lectern to the Toastmaster.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So with that, we will move on to our prepared speeches. And our next speaker is my mentor. And I have enjoyed working with him to learn more about Toastmasters and how it works. And he does a great job with the speeches he does. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Diego for his speech.
Thank you, Cheyenne. And just give me a minute to share the screen. Okay. Oh boy. Okay. And let me get my clock ready. Okay. Thank you, fellow Toastmasters, fellow guests, audience members, everyone tonight who has the pleasure of learning a little bit about chemistry and its intersection with environmental sustainability and solutions. I have great excitement tonight in sharing with you all this type of chemistry research that I did in my final semester at South Alabama. I focused on addressing a type of water pollution that is global and something that I don't think is receiving as much attention as it probably deserves. And so I have the great opportunity, and I'm very thankful that I can spotlight this important issue with you all tonight. And thank you for your attention. My research is looking at artificial sweeteners. Artificial sweeteners are a group of compounds that we can consume on a daily basis that provide zero caloric intake, but they provide that really nice, tasty, sugary, sweet flavor. That's why they're found in beverages, diet beverages, all these types of sweets that say have a great sugary taste and don't have it, and you can still do this on a diet. There are 5 artificial sweeteners in circulation in the United States, but the 2 artificial sweeteners that the lab that I was working with was focused on are sucralose, which is this compound right here, and asulfame K. The reason that these compounds provide no caloric intake is because they are metabolically inactive. When you consume them, they are not broken down by the cellular respiration cycle. But since they still hit the same taste receptors as table sugar, you can still enjoy the great taste. This is why they're very stable. Now, while a few pieces of research have indicated that when you consume these types of compounds at dosages higher than what the makers recommend that you do based on your body weight and things like that, really what is of greater concern is the fact that when we, I forgot to mention another important point. So these compounds are so stable that we excrete them out of the body through the urinary system or through feces. And wastewater treatment plants receive these types of waters from toilets and things like that. And the agents that they use to try and cleanse the water of these impurities are unsuccessful at breaking these things down. So this leads into my point about wastewater indicators. So wastewater is basically any type of water that is used and gets polluted in the process of human use. and this goes to the point that if we find these compounds, in waters, then probably sewage contamination is not too far away. This is bacteria that exists in feces and polluted waters. And we can use, it's been frequently found in scientific literature that finding measurements of artificial sweeteners like sucralose and acesulfame will also probably contain high concentrations of these bacteria. And these bacteria are linked with cholera, and people can get infected by inadvertently ingesting the waters when they go swimming or when they consume shellfish that are contaminated by these types of nasty bacteria. My research not only was important for me to get an idea of what the contamination is in the area that we were researching, which is in Biolabattery. The water body is Portersville Bay. I also looked at other areas across the globe, and fortunately, Portersville Bay is actually is doing a pretty good job of staying relatively uncontaminated. Spain actually has some of the highest levels of acesulfame and sucralose in these different studies that I looked at. And you can see Portersville Bay is really low. So that's really good news that it seems that best practices are being used in Biolabattery area. For better context, here is the Mobile Bay, and in the bottom left-hand corner is the Portersville Bay area. And this is a zoom in of the study site that we looked at. Let's see if I can activate my pointer. Pointer options, okay. Here is an outflow pipe of a wastewater treatment plant. This is an offshore site, and here is near an oyster farm. So these three areas are areas of particular interest for people like me and for other scientists who are looking to minimize exposure to bacteria and wastewater for people in that area and for people who consume the shellfish of that area. In the research that I came across, the sucralose was very high in this area. The oyster farm featured also a concerning amount of acesulfame, and the offshore site also featured some contamination of these artificial sweeteners. So these areas are deserving of more investigation to find out where these potential sites are being contaminated with sewage water. I think the other thing I want to point out importantly is that the Dauphin Island Sea Lab collaborators do not think that there are currents taking contaminants from the wastewater treatment plant to the oyster farm. This is another period that was sampling, and again, these were the three areas of interest. It seems that these contamination amounts of these artificial sweeteners is relatively consistent throughout both periods, and this type of monitoring will be used to further identify what potential areas, perhaps upstream along this way, might be generating so much artificial sweetener that would make the oyster farm at risk of sewage contamination. I wish I could spend more time harping on the beautiful chemistry and the important significance of this type of study, but I want to be respectful of everyone's time in the next speaker. So I'm going to relinquish the lectern, and I'm going to invite any quick questions that I can answer for you all tonight. Thank you so much for your attention.
All right, thank you, Diego. It's really interesting. It's something that affects everyone, and I guess we can mindlessly eat seafood and things like that and not really think about where it's coming from, but we need to. So thank you for that. Did you say you want to do some questions?
Yes, I don't want to, maybe one or two questions, and I'll try to keep the answer succinct and to the point.
Okay.
Hey Diego, this is Luke. I got a quick question. So you pointed out those three sites that were a concern for you guys. What
Yes.
about the other sites? Were you guys testing those as well, or are they a different kind of site?
That's a good question, Luke. So the question that was asked is, I harped on these 3 locations, and Luke was wondering what type of information was gleaned from the other sites. That is a good question, Luke. So the other sites include an industrial site, residential areas. Some of this little cylinder is a septic tank, an agricultural site, a forest site, and some more residential areas. Off the top of my head, I can't tell you the concentration amounts, but just looking at the color coding scheme, it seemed, with green being good and yellow being mid to concerning a bit, these areas do not seem to feature high amounts of these types of contaminants, which is good news. But they are still deserving of more. They're still deserving of more evaluation and monitoring, especially the areas that don't have septic tanks, because the septic tanks do a good job of keeping the sewage contamination in. That is my best. That's my best assessment I can give for you right now.
Great, thanks, Diego. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Do we have one more question?
I was going to ask just if you had an opinion on the use of artificial sweeteners as far as the health implications on the human body.
Okay, so David just wanted for me to share my 2 cents on artificial sweeteners. Boy, that's a very good question, worth looking at further. I mean, I had just have a gut feeling of I think having access to table sugar and types of compounds that provide that same taste. I'm really concerned that of the accessibility that we have for this type of this compound, because I really think it is a big problem with obesity. I remember hearing many years ago about fat being treated as the culprit for obesity, but I remember learning recently that the sugar industry and lobbying was able to turn attention away from table sugar towards this compound. And that's very concerning for me. I feel like table sugar and any compound that pretends to be table sugar, I feel is very concerning. So as a personal decision on my part, I do my best not to consume table sugar or compounds that have that still similar taste, because I don't think that agrees with my interest of being healthy and trying to maintain a stable diet, a healthy diet. I think that's my 2 cents on that compound. Thanks, Dave. Thanks for that good question.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't want to take away further time. Thank you all so much for your attention and really great questions tonight. And I'm going to relinquish the lectern back to Cheyenne. Thank you all so much once again.
All right, thank you. Awesome. I like speeches with questions. It's very interactive and something that we're all curious about. So without further ado, we have 2 speakers tonight, which is a treat. And our second speaker, hopefully he knows this is coming for him, but we have a light roasting by Maurice for Mr. David Roberts and his retirement.
Yes, and this is a 3 to 5 minute speech right here. Fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, I've been given the privilege to give a little talk or speech here at David's retirement celebration. And I know it's a sad time and a happy time at the same time. It's just that complicated, or maybe not so complicated. But I would like to start the beginning of David's engineering career, which started in August of 1987. And he worked with ALDOT, the Alabama Department of Transportation, as a civil engineer. And he had just graduated earlier that year from South Alabama. And as he describes it, he was a young and inexperienced person, and no one wanted to hire him. But the state decided to take a chance on him. So I guess it became a ward of the state since no one else wanted him. I don't know. But when he started working, he did not have a realization of what the real world was like. And it was a real shock to him. College was difficult for him, but at least he had a feeling of security and being cared for. But I don't know if there were safe spaces back then in '87, but probably not, as it's known today. But he enjoyed his college career in spite of his any difficulties that it had. And you're going to find a little more about David that you didn't think based on how we know him at Toastmasters. But he started off assigned to the Cochrane African Tau Bridge. And he quickly learned, as most engineers learn, that some of the grunts or field workers know more than they do, in spite of the years of schooling. And it's just another real world effect of a college graduate entering the real world. But he seemed to enjoy these parts, inspecting concrete pours, even putting down asphalt. So early in David's career, he was really kicking the asphalt. But moving on, it's some of the things that you wouldn't think that David likes based on how he describes his shyness of being able to, of speaking in front of people, not now, but before he joined Toastmasters. He's apparently not afraid of heights. Yet he seems to enjoy being at a high height, especially when working in bridge construction. But moving on, there was one incident that he had where he was on a bridge deck, standing on the rebar, and there was a concrete pump truck getting ready to do its work, but the pump truck operator, he accidentally moved the boom too close to a power line, and I guess an arc current hit it, and he heard a big explosion, a big spark. But needless to say, after that, even though David wasn't hurt and other people weren't hurt, I assume, the pump truck operator was fired. So I guess, that's one way he burned his bridge. But moving on again, as time is rutted out, he was promoted as a project engineer. And just remember some of the things that he said when he started Toastmasters, that he was shy as a leader. So he was a shy person, and he was not used to having employees and directing employees. And stemming from that, if I read it correctly, he had a drinking problem, and eventually he recovered. He went to a recovery program and got through that. And then also, he got promoted as, well, he moved from the construction department to the planning department, and he became extremely frustrated at someone during one of his projects, and instead of accepting what that person gave, he rebelled, and he got reprimanded, but he didn't get fired. And one thing that saved him from being fired was his computer skills. And at this point, David didn't burn a bridge. And a final point is that he got interested in photography, digital photography, back when digital cameras were only 4 pixels. But he seemed to get good at it. And here's a story that David has that he can give at another time about the time he got on the bridge tower of the Cochrane Bridge. And it was quite an adventure. And it could have been, he could have died during this incident here. But he survived. In spite of some minor injuries, he was able to make it through this incident, which David could tell at a later time. But in spite of him in the past being shy and being afraid to speak in front of people up until the time that he joined Toastmasters, he is a very adventurous person behind that. So one theme that I would give to David on this in his domicile of Sweet Home, Alabama, his story of his engineering career was full of bridges and heights. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you so much. It was a nice roast. It wasn't too bad. It wasn't too roasty, so that's good. All right, so that concludes our speeches, and everyone did a great job as usual. And now we will move on to our table topics. And for our table topics, we have Kyler Gates, who will be presenting those for us.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Kyler Gates, and I will be your table topics master for the evening. So I have a few interesting questions. The first 2 are kind of simple, and then the last one is going to be a bit of a doozy. So I'm going to warn you guys about that ahead of time. So what I'll do is I'll ask the question, and then whoever wants to answer it can raise their hand, and I'll pick someone. And then the last one, of course, whoever's brave enough, they can take that one. So first question I want to ask is kind of simple. Of course, we've all been at home, we've been quarantining, and it looks like we're going to continue to mostly stay at home. There may be a few things opening up, but it's still safer to stay home during these times. But during this, you can't help but think of all the, wonderful things that we had and the ability to travel and, essentially, it's made us stop and think, how far humanity has progressed and how many things we have to be thankful for. So when everything is truly safe and back to normal, if you could spend the weekend in any city, which one would you choose? All right, Sean?
Fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, I've been asked if I could spend a weekend in any city, which one would I choose? And that's an easy answer for me. My mom was supposed to come visit me back in March, right around when this whole thing hit, and I told her to stay home because I didn't want her to get sick, and I didn't want her to be on an airplane and be around a bunch of people. So I didn't get to see my mom in March, and so I would want to go to Tampa and see my mom, go back home and visit, and hopefully I'll be able to do that soon. And see my dad also, and just hang out with them and spend some time with them, and just, home is home, and my family's there, and right now I just kind of miss them. So I'd love to see them and give them a hug or whatever you need to do. An air hug, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you for sharing that, Sean. I appreciate that. This Mother's Day was kind of tough because a lot of us, couldn't see our mothers in person. And, just it kind of reminds you, just how thankful we can be to spend time with our family members. And I appreciate your answer. That's a very, very noble answer. So I did not realize it, but we're a little bit behind on schedule. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump to the last question, which is kind of a doozy. So I'm going to start off with this. Whoever wants to take it, raise your hand. But be forewarned, you will not be judged for your answer. You don't have to be scientifically accurate. The goal of this is just to catch you off balance and see how you handle it. So that being said, if everyone's been watching the news lately, I think you may have noticed that the Pentagon has released some interesting footage of what is believed to be UFOs. So the question I have for whoever's brave enough to take it is, do you believe in aliens?
I'll take it.
All right, David.
Good evening. My question asked for me is, do I believe in aliens based on especially the recent footage from the Pentagon? My thoughts on aliens is the best I've ever heard about aliens is something Carl Sagan said, was that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And I think that an alien technology that was capable of traveling from light years away to Earth, the idea that they're going to come here and then crash in some farmer's field trying to land is just ludicrous. I think if aliens are here, if they wanted to be known, we would know about them. And if they didn't want to be known, then we would not be able, they would be undetectable. Having said that, the recent research, considering how many billions of stars there are in this galaxy alone, and then there are billions and billions of galaxies in the universe, the idea that there are no aliens, there is no alien life is unthinkable. So I do believe that there are aliens. I have never been convinced that they have visited Earth. I would love it if they had. That would be the greatest thing ever. Also, I was a huge fan of the television show The X-Files, and I want to believe, I really do, but right now I don't believe. Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, David. That was a wonderful answer. I think you summed it up really well. I'm in the camp where I want to believe, but I need some extraordinary evidence before I will start believing in something. That being said, thank you, everyone. I know this was a shorter table topics, but to keep us on schedule, I will relinquish the lectern back to the Toastmaster. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so now I will relinquish or give the lectern over to the general evaluator, who will go through our multiple evaluations from this evening.
Thank you,
And that
Toastmaster.
is Peter.
Thank you, Toastmaster. I'd first like to invite up to the lectern the first evaluator. I believe that's Carrie. And that would be for Diego's speech on artificial sweetener study.
Hello, everyone. Good evening, and I'm going to evaluate Diego's speech and evaluation of an artificial sweetener contamination study. First of all, first of all, it was very informational and interesting to me because artificial sweetener is something very close to my everyday life. Actually, chemistry is Diego's speech getting closer and closer to the chemistry world. Let's move on to the next part. You excellent at. I'd like to share 3 things. First, your gestures. As I mentioned yesterday, you speak in 3-dimensional. That means move back and forth and also left and right. not just a two-dimensional. We are on the Zoom. We are on the just flat screen. Looks very two-dimensional, but using your gestures and not just like this, but back and forth, side and side, so three-dimensional, and it looks more exciting to see. Next, your voice. This is the first time I feel you are somewhat emotional or nervous or something. And then you're getting more confidence and confident. And actually that's good because I feel like you're human beings. You're always confidence voice. I like it, but sometimes it's good to show your emotion. You try not to probably, but it's good to see your more human side. I really enjoy it. The last one is slide. You use the limited number of slides. It's good to use slides, but not too many because sometimes audience hard to keep up. You use, I believe, 3 or 4 slices. I think that's a very good number. The last part of this speech is you may want to work on. First, you need to adjust your camera angle because when you're speaking, your top head was chopped off. So adjust your angle. Even you use the slides, but your face still on the screen, on the small corner of my cell phone. And the second, eye contact. You use slides and you use gestures, but you lack on eye contact. I don't feel you're watching me or audience. So look at your camera. This is probably because of the Zoom online discussion. Make sure you always look at the screen so that people or audience feel to be seen by speaker. You challenge yourself, ratio of the slide time and non-slide time. All 6 minutes, 7 minutes, all I see is your slide. And I think it's good to sometimes turn off the slides and show yourself, especially when you answer the question the last 1 or 2 minutes. So the ratio, it's good to use the slides, and it was good number of the slides we used. A time ratio, slide, no slide. That's what I like to share tonight. And overall, I really enjoy. Again, it's very informational, and now I'm more interested in chemistry. Thanks to you. Back to Toastmaster.
Thank you for that insightful feedback, Carrie. It was very, very thorough, and it was also very detailed. Very nice. I'd like to invite the second evaluator, and that is, I believe, Luke, and that is for the roast. That was Maurice's David Roberts Retirement Banquet roast.
All right. Good evening, fellow Toastmaster members. So I had the pleasure of being the evaluator for Maurice's roast of David's retirement. And so the first topic here on the evaluation, it says, how well were the jokes and antidotes adapted to the occasion and the individual being roasted? I put very well adapted to the roast and to the person. Roast can be rough, as we know, and we've probably seen on TV. But Maurice, you did a great job keeping it light, keeping it clean and fun. I felt the jokes followed the theme of the story of David's retirement very well. So number 2, how did the speaker delivery contribute to or hinder the effectiveness of the humorous material? I put very methodical delivery. Maurice, you always have a very methodical way you speak. It's logical. It's easy for all of us to follow. And this roast was no different. I actually really enjoy and kind of take it as a point when I watch you speak to try to calm down and slow down myself too. So I thought you did a great job, just like you always do. So how effective were the jokes and the antidotes? So I love puns. My dad growing up was always making puns. Savannah actually always makes fun of me because she says my puns are silly or kind of stupid, but I think that's what makes them funny. So when you said the asphalt pun and the burn his bridge pun, I definitely got a good laugh out of that. I put there very, very relevant as you spoke of David's career, being an engineer and building bridges and working with asphalt. So, like I said, I felt the jokes or the puns were very relevant to the roast. So number 4, what could speaker have done differently to make the speech more effective? So I put down that, you know, we're stuck behind the camera right now. We're all, you know, using Zoom and doing the best we can. So really this is not your fault. It's just what we have to deal with. But I think just being up behind the lectern, you know, at Carpe Diem, or just up in general, moving around, definitely would have added to the effectiveness of the jokes, you know, as we're watching you move around the room and maybe pointing and using hand gestures. But doing Zoom meeting, we can't do that. And so it is what it is. But that's what I did put down for to make it more effective. And what did I like about the speech? I liked all of it, Maurice. I really do love listening to you speak. I got a kick out of your speech, and I like that you were laughing at your own jokes too, because I was definitely laughing. And I thought overall you did a great job. So I will turn it back over to our general evaluator.
Thank you. That was a great evaluation, Luke. Next, I'd like to get the timer report from Olivia. Olivia, were you doing the timing reports?
Yes, my apologies.
Oh, it's okay.
I was having a hard time getting off of mute.
Olivia was just muted, you guys.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so for Diego's speech, before the question portion, you were at 7 minutes and 14 seconds. Maurice, you were at 6 minutes and 32 seconds. For table topics, Sean, your speech was 1 minute and 20 seconds. And David, yours was 1 minute and 28 seconds. I truly forgot to start the timer when Carrie was doing her evaluation. I'm sorry, yes, when Carrie was doing her evaluation. But by the time I got it started, you were roughly around 3 minutes. I added like 30 seconds to it. And then Luke, yours was 2 minutes and 52 seconds. And that is my report.
Thank you, Olivia. Next, we'd like to have the counter and grammarian, David, provide his feedback.
Hi again, everyone. I'll start with the word of the day, domicile. If I'm not mistaken, Maurice is the only use of the word of the day I found for domicile. So very good, Maurice. And also I wanted to thank Maurice for asking me to be his subject of his roast. I enjoyed providing the material. It brought back memories of my career. And so that was, and I really think you did a good job. Thank you. And I'm glad to see Ryan here visiting us or with us again today. Thanks, Ryan. Continuing on, and if I missed anybody word of the day, let me know, but that was the only one I picked up. As far as the counter goes, Diego's speech, I did not detect any ahs or ums or any filler words. For Maurice's speech, I did not detect any. When Kyler was doing the table topics, there were several you knows and ums, but Kyler did a good job on the table topics. Moving on, Sean had in his table topic speech, I counted one you know, but that was it. For me, for my table topic speech, I know I had at least one and there may have been others, but I was distracted talking. For Carrie's evaluation of Diego, I noted one Carrie's connection was cutting out a few times. If there was any others, I missed it, but I definitely noted one which she noted as well at the very beginning. So she admitted it. Moving on to the Luke's evaluation of Maurice's speech, I had about 3 uhs, about 3 ums, and 1 you know, but they were pretty quick. They weren't drawn out. I think the Zoom format kind of throws everybody off a little too, so it's easy to slip into that. And as far as improper use of the English language, I didn't notice anything that just really stood out. I'm sure there was, not everything maybe was perfect, but it sounded good to me. And also, if Carrie would like to be a officer, I would like to nominate her for treasurer. And that's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you. That was very, very nice feedback. And just overall general evaluation of the meeting, we got off a little bit, maybe about 5 minutes to 7 minutes late start. But as always, this is always the fastest hour, meaning that the meetings are always really great. I'd like to invite the Toastmaster back up to the lectern.
Oh, sorry, we were muted. Thank you. And with that, I will turn it back over, or do we have our educational overview ready?
I'm ready. Fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, tonight I have read an article about the 7 seconds of terror. What this is about is a renowned, or a very seasoned Toastmaster named Ed Tate. It's in the April issue of Toastmaster magazine. He is speaking at the 2016 Toastmasters International Convention in Washington, D.C., and he is the keynote, I might have mentioned, he's the keynote speaker. And what happens is he has a couple of slip-ups in his preparation. And I like, when I was looking at this and studying a little bit, I think about it like when I'm a runner and I run races sometimes. When I was in high school, I was a competitive runner. And when you prepare for a race, you have a routine. You get yourself psyched up, you take a deep breath, you get some water, you go to the bathroom, you do all that stuff and get all ready, and you do your warm-ups. And this is basically what Ed is talking about here. Well, what happens is he's traveled to Washington, D.C. for this keynote speech, and he gets all thrown off kilter because he's out of his element. He's in a new place with all these people. And so mistake number 1 was he was breaking his preparation routine. He said his regular day of speech routine is to rehearse backstage until called up on stage. However, on this occasion, he was asked to take photos with the media. Afterward, Toastmasters audience members began to line up, and I wasn't going to say no. Before I knew it, the opening ceremonies had started. My wife and I were seated in the front row center. I knew if I left, I would be noticed, and I didn't want to be rude, so I stayed, committing my first critical mistake, breaking my preparation routine. He also had some other mistakes. One was he compared himself to the speaker that came before him, and that speaker did an excellent job, and it kind of intimidated him at that point. So he kind of psyched himself out. Then after he got up on stage, this was mistake number 3, he got up on stage and he shifted his focus from his speech to the previous one and tried to do a audible, I guess you'd say, and it kind of threw him off. And then he talks about how he got back focused. The 3 things: pausing and taking a deep breath after he kind of got off focus from his shifting focus, and refocusing his attention away from himself, but instead of from himself, but to the audience, and just tried to build himself back up from the disappointment he had where he kind of botched this opening statement. And then thirdly, he decided to treat it, instead of a memorized speech, just a conversation with 2,000 of his best friends. So easier said than done, but that is my educational overview for this evening.
All right, thank you, Sean. That's definitely relevant, and I find that applies to every area of life. When we get thrown off our routine, it can definitely, it's hard to recover from that. So with that, thank you for this opportunity to be your Toastmaster, and I look forward to doing it again. And I now will turn the lectern over to our president. You're muted, Diego. We can't hear you.
Whoops. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Cheyenne. Thank you to Table Topics Master. Thank you to everyone's roles tonight who shared their time and attention with being a part of the educational environment tonight. And thank you all as well for your patience on this extended meeting time. Let's see. Please, when you have the opportunity, please check on Easy Speak about next week's meeting roles. I will send another email out of the prospective agenda. And one more a reminder announcement is that we will not be meeting 2 Mondays from now, but we anticipate next Monday to announce the new officer roles, or to do a quick period, a quick opportunity for people who are competing for one role to share a bit about why they should be in that role. Any important updates, again, will be shared through mail. Thank you all for your attention tonight, and we will see you all next week for another great learning opportunity with Toastmasters. Thank you all so much.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Take care.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Take
Bye.
care.
Bye.
Good
Have a
night.
good week.
Good night.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Wait, let me stop recording.